Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Get Football Mercato show. Here every weekday to bring you the latest transfer news from across France, Germany, and Italy. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are Alessandro Pugliese from Get Italian Football News, Axel Falk from Get German Football News, and Hal Walker from Get French Football News. Let's dive straight into things. And the big story this evening is Bordeaux winger Malcom's transfer saga, we should call it now, really, that has taken another twist just before recording as the club has stopped his jet on its way to Roma. Sandro, why has he been grounded?
Well, in a late dramatic turn of events, Barcelona seem to have made a last-second bid and are looking to hijack a deal for the Brazilian. And so Bordeaux called off his plane to Rome, and now the Italian club are left in limbo as Monkey tries to gather sorts. And it looks like while Barcelona's bid is around 40 million, supposedly Roma are ready to improve their offer as well. So breaking news. Very dramatic scenes that are currently updating as we speak.
Yeah, it's the first time in a long while we've seen someone stopped on the runway, at least, Sandro. But it looked for the longest time today that deal was done, signed, sealed, and delivered. There's supposedly fans already there awaiting as well. At the same time, will Roma be frustrated that they couldn't quite get this over the line before someone else jumped into the party?
I think so. I mean, to be honest, it really looked all said and done. Both clubs had even sent out tweets confirming an agreement had been reached. He was set to arrive tonight. Medical is tomorrow morning, and then join the squad in America for their tour. It seems that Roma were really all set to close this thing. And now with Barca involved, it's going to be tough. But I think Roma's definitely going to want to try to close this as soon as they can, because now it looks like there might be a bidding war.
Yeah, which is not exactly what a Roma team would like, really. And bringing you into this, Hal, really, because obviously Bordeaux player involved in this, and Barcelona coming in the last minutes maybe gave them a little bit of hope, because there was the rumours in January that there was Tottenham and Manchester United lined up. Now it's obviously seemed that the interest has died off a little. Roma seemed the only club particularly interested. I know Inter Milan as well were rumoured beforehand, but now a bidding war for him. It's a great chance for them to lift that price back up again and really make a great splash.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there was a bidding war going on. We had the likes of Leicester City also and Everton previously to that going up against Roma for the signature of Malcom. And as we know, Tottenham were going after him in January. The factor of Champions League football was important for Roma's signature. That was until a couple of hours ago the ceiling factor that was going to get the Brazilian signature in Rome. Of course, Barcelona will have this as well, and the lure of Catalonia will have its effect. But actually, as we're saying, a bidding war has taken place. Get French Football have learned in the last hour or so that another major European side, aside from Roma and Barcelona, have also made last-minute contact. Now, I would say that this side is an unnamed side, so we don't know who this is yet.
And it'll be interesting to see if they can compete with those two, really, if it's say if a British side has come back in. But I want to get your opinion on this, Hal. I'm purposely not asking this on Sandro because he might have a slight bias in this question, really. But out of those two teams that we know are interested in, Roma and Barcelona, where would Malcom fit the best, and what would be best for his fledgling career?
I mean, in terms of his playing time, I think Roma would be the best move for him. Because he's still got Champions League football. He's got a good manager there in Di Francesco who would be keen to sort of further his development. So that's where I think that it would still make sense for him to look into. But yeah, I mean, Barcelona, it's got that lure, isn't it? So yeah.
Yes, it's difficult for anyone to resist the Camp Nou sometimes, really, especially when it looks like their attention's turning away from Willian, but turning our attentions elsewhere, really. Although that deal really did hit us by surprise, and on to the sites in Germany, at least, with you, Axel, and Borussia Dortmund in a number of real deals at the moment. There's big rumours that they're looking for Axel Witsel, who's also interesting. Their former manager, Thomas Tuchel's now at Paris Saint-Germain as well. Do you think that they can get the Belgian across the line?
I think it all depends on the possible transfer of Julian Weigl, actually. Considering, I mean, he's been rumored to PSG as well, to Thomas Tuchel, his former coach, where he did extremely well, who he did extremely well with at Borussia Dortmund, of course. So I think if Julian Weigl does leave Borussia Dortmund to PSG, I do really think that Axel Witsel would be the replacement for them, his heir, to be honest, in midfield, basically, because they would need a new controller, a new defensive midfielder to control the park in Favre's often hectic systems. So I think they could definitely. I mean, it's rumored to be about 20 million, according to Revier Sport, which would leave lots of money left of the also rumored 50 million for Julian Weigl to PSG. So I definitely think they would and could get it across the line. It all depends on Julian Weigl, I suppose.
Yeah, it's some classic Dortmund wheeling and dealing, but it's an interesting wording saying Witsel is the heir to the throne, given that he's a good few years on Weigl, but maybe his experience, he's obviously played in Europe before with Zenit and Benfica, although obviously recently playing in China. What do you think he will give that Dortmund team? Will he maybe give them an old wiser head into such a young side?
Possibly. I also do think that, I mean, the current Borussia Dortmund midfield lacks a bit of power, a bit of pressing in general. I think Axel Witsel's extreme aggressiveness could become a real factor in that, actually. But also, I mean, he's older, he's more experienced, he's played many games at a very high international level. So I think that could definitely help a very young midfield, a very young team in general. So yeah, it could be a very good transfer for him, even though I do hold Julian Weigl as a bigger prospect, obviously, as he's 22 and Axel Witsel 29, I think. But yeah, I mean, his age could be very, very important, actually, for that young midfield and that young team.
And it does come off, and I'll bring you in on this, Hal, because obviously Paris Saint-Germain are involved, and they're looking for a defensive midfielder with Thiago Motta obviously going in, sort of making a makeshift defensive midfielder for the majority of the second half of the season, at least. Would someone like Julian Weigl be the right person for them to bring into the side, despite his somewhat struggles last season?
Yeah, I mean, Weigl would certainly be. I mean, you got to bear in mind the links with Thomas Tuchel here. He's coached him before. He knows his game very well, and I think he can harness his development and bring out the best in him. In terms of Witsel, he would be more of an experienced head in the centre of midfield, sort of a calming influence in the centre there, and he would really be a direct replacement for Thiago Motta if Axel Witsel was to come in.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, really, that PSG are going for both of them. But Borussia Dortmund fans might be sick of the sight of Thomas Tuchel already, even before he's really got his teeth into the job there. But on to things in France, really, and the big deal that a lot of Liverpool fans who will be tuning in will be wanting to hear about it is Nabil Fekir. Hal, obviously it broke down early this summer before the World Cup. There was hope of maybe reviving it. Is that something that's happening, or is he maybe leaning towards staying at Lyon?
Well, it's really one of the sagas of the summer, isn't it, really? Liverpool, the latest is that Liverpool appear to have made it clear that their interest in Fekir is ended. Jean-Michel Aulas has made it clear also that there are currently no offers on Lyon's desk for the French international. I think that the most likely scenario as of tonight would be for the World Cup winner to remain at Lyon. Le Progress have reported that he's been offered a contract extension. His current deal runs out in 2020. Now, if he chooses to reject it, then it could well force Lyon from there to proactively look to sell the player. But at the moment, that doesn't look to be the case.
It's an interesting one that keeps building, doesn't it, this summer? He's a talented player, but maybe it was just about ready to move on, really. But do you think there's a possibility that Liverpool may revive their interest? They've been in the past before saying they were never going to sign a player, and then have come back strongly, and they feel like they may be one player away from being a really strong side. Do you think Fekir would add to them and make them genuine title contenders?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not played in the Premier League before, but yeah, I mean, everyone is completely knows his talents. He's an immense prospect, and he would be very much suited to the Premier League. Liverpool have shown a long-term interest, as they did with Naby Keita. Well, not so much with the Fabinho one, obviously, because that was a last-minute deal. But Jurgen Klopp is a big admirer of Nabil Fekir. So whether the player wants to move or not, at the moment, the ball's in Lyon's park.
Yeah, absolutely. Time to focus more narrowly on the leagues, and we'll start with Serie A because there's plenty of interesting stuff for you to dig through, Sandra, especially one that came through almost minutes before the start of the programme, and that's Miralem Pjanic, who may be looking at the exit door at Juventus, with Manchester City rumoring to have bid for the player. Would that be the right kind of move for him, or maybe that the opportunity to play with someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, it doesn't come around often? May he want to reject that?
I mean, well, City's interest is not surprising, especially after losing out on Jorginho from Napoli. Pjanic would certainly be a nice fit in Guardiola's midfield, but you bring up a great point. I'm not exactly sure Pjanic wants to leave right now after signing one of the top goal scorers, if not the best in the world. To me, personally, I think Pjanic and his agent are looking to get an improved contract after Ronaldo's monstrous deal. But Juventus definitely want to hold on to him, are only interested in offers above 100 million. We don't have the details of Manchester City's offer at the moment, but it definitely want to keep an eye on because, as Juve sporting director Pepe Marotta has stated in the past, if players want to leave and express that desire, Juve are willing to sell at the right price. But for the moment, I think Juve will try their best to hold on to him.
But that's the interesting thing, isn't it, for the old lady, Sandro, that bringing in someone like Cristiano Ronaldo does cause those tensions, but also they cost a lot of money, for one thing. Are they still looking to sell players to make up that deficit of bringing in someone like Cristiano Ronaldo?
Certainly. I mean, the sale of Higuain is practically a priority at this point for the club. Other squad players such as Sturaro are definitely on their way out. There are talks of either one of the two young center backs, Daniele Rugane or Mattia Caldara, being sold if a proper offer comes in at the right price. So Juventus are definitely also looking to sell to make up some funds after, dropping the bank on Ronaldo.
And a brief hypothetical for you there, Sandro. If Pjanic was to move to City, what will he bring to the Premier League?
Very similar to Jorginho, who had his debut with Chelsea in a friendly today. But I think he dictates the tempo, creates fantastically well from that holding six position. He'd really be the engine and the facilitator in Guardiola's midfield for sure, which would certainly be exciting prospect to see.
Yeah, I'm thinking the salivating of him and Kevin De Bruyne and creating for those strikers. They must be itching to get him in the ranks if they can. On to AC Milan, who have not just an interesting things going on behind the scenes, but they are supposedly still looking at strikers as well. Who's on their shortlist, Sandra?
So the main names that have been reported as of late, obviously there was a whole situation with Benzema and his agent recently with Di Marzio. But besides that, Higuain is also on their radar, as well as Immobile and Morata. I mean, at this point, it's really tricky to say. the management situation at Milan is still being sorted out. So before anything can progress on the transfer market, that needs to be sorted, the front office. But it is interesting to note that, players also need to be sold before Milan can get into serious negotiations with anyone, for various reasons. But those are the main 4 names at the moment. But there will be some time before any serious developments happen on that front.
And it's an interesting one, really, because obviously you think back to last summer and Andre Silva came in, Ivan Kalinic came in. They brought strikers last summer. They didn't quite work out. Is there any news of possible goings out in that scenario then if a striker was to come in?
Well, that's one of the situations. The very likely scenario is that both Kalinic and Baca would need to depart in order to sign one of those 4 names previously mentioned. Andre Silva's future still seems undecided. He could leave or he could get one more shot for the upcoming season. But certainly those 2 strikers are on their way out. And Kalinic seems set to join Atletico Madrid. But now the Spanish side are also looking at Giroud from Chelsea. So things are yet to play out.
It might be interesting if Simeone has to coerce the Croatian to come off the bench. That might be an interesting one, should that need to occur. On to the final little bit of news from Italy this evening, and it's an interesting one from PSG striker Edinson Cavani being linked back to his old club, Napoli. Is there any kind of truth in that one for you, Sandro?
Personally, for me, very little. This seems like a very, very hard deal to pull off. De Laurentiis, Napoli's president, usually likes to run his mouth, but he was pretty on point when he said that Cavani would need to practically cut his salary in half to be able to rejoin his former club. Granted, Napoli could use another striker, as Milik has had injury concerns in the past. And then, obviously, from the French side, perhaps PSG are looking to sell because of FFP, but that doesn't seem so certain. So for me, and no real credible reports have come out with a strong case for this to happen yet. So to me, this is very low odds of happening.
Yeah, it seems a little bit too much far-fetched, at least anyway, to get through. Just some breaking news we have on Get German Football News. So I'll bring you in this on Axel, and Chilean media tonight are reporting that Fernando Filicevic, a consultant for Arturo Vidal, is in Munich for negotiations to discuss a possible transfer with Man United and Inter Milan showing an interest. That's coming from Christian Falk of Sport Bild. What do you think to that movement, really? I know that it's a little bit clogged in that midfield, and with James Rodriguez still there and showing how good he was last season. There's rumours of Thiago potentially on the exit door as well. What do you think could happen there, Axel? Do you think Vidal is a legitimate mover?
Definitely. It's been on the cards for, a year, basically. Last year has been injured lots. He's not been on form. He's been, out of favour for Jupp Heynckes and for Carlo Ancelotti and Niko Kovac. I can't imagine him planning a future with Arturo Vidal. And it has been rumoured for last week now that he's about to join either Manchester United or Inter. So I think any one of those could seem reasonable. And if he does go to Manchester United, of course, that deal could play into the possible Martial deal as well. So there's Vidal could become a true bargaining object for Bayern Munich, but he could also leave for Inter for about 20 million, which seems to be the sum, 22 million about. So, and that would be a decent deal for Bayern Munich and for Inter if that would be the case. So it does seem very likely that it will leave Bayern Munich, and I can't imagine anything else that it would be good for both sides.
Yeah, and if Man United need any more tenacity in the midfield, I'm sure Arturo Vidal will bring it in some kind of form at least. Anyway, on to Ligue 1 and some transfer news from there, and let's focus on that with you. How some done deals this evening for Jimmy Briand and Alexis Romar, with the former leaving these shores for the MLS.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Jimmy Briand, Guingamp have today confirmed the departure of their forward and captain Jimmy Briand to Montreal. He will be linking up with his former manager at Lyon, of course, and that is Remy Gard. Jimmy Briand is 32 years old now, and he scored 30 goals over the course of 3 seasons for Guingamp. So he will be a big miss for them.
And a great leader, a captain as well. He was really good at Guingamp. He showed a lot of strength. But a man coming back to France really is Alexis Romar. We obviously remember him from his Lorient on Marseille days, but he's joining up with the newly promoted Stade de Reims.
Yes, so Reims have completed the signing of the defensive midfielder from Olympiacos on a 2-year contract. He was actually there, I believe, 2017 when they won the Greek Championship. Obviously, they didn't win it last year; they came third. But he's 35 years old now. But he's amassed 67 caps for Togo. But he's also, as you say, he's had notorious spells, 3-year spells at Marseille, Lorient, and Grenoble.
Yeah, he's a well-experienced Ligue 1 practitioner. I'm pretty sure Reims will be delighted to have someone like him on their books. On to a French international rather than a Ligue 1 player, and that's Steven Nzonzi, who's consistently been linked to Arsenal this summer with obviously his former manager Unai Emery at the helm. What can you tell us about a potential deal there?
It's ongoing at the moment. So the current situation is that Arsenal and Unai Emery are trying to negotiate with Seville for the French international. It seems that the Gunners are trying to talk down Sevilla into putting in a lower bid than the 40 million euro release clause that is currently in Nzonzi's contract. Arsenal, we believe, are trying to get it for a lower fee, but we are yet to see if that will be successful. I think it'll be if they can get this one over the line, it'll be a massive signing for Unai Emery. It'll be a big physical presence in that midfield, but he's got that ability to keep the ball so well, and he's so calm and composed, almost, well, dare I say it, Patrick Vieira-esque.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with the tenacity of Lucas Torreira near him as well, and all these physical, more aggressive players at Arsenal, Steven Lichtsteiner. It's going to be maybe an interesting season for them, given what they look like they're doing. And finally, really, the interesting one for myself as well, because I'd almost forgotten about him, Majid Waris, who obviously former Ligue 1 striking with Valenciennes and others. Lorient on their relegation season. He's been at Porto since January, but he looks to be quote unquote released. Could he be heading back to these shores across? Well, not these shores, across the channel from myself at least. Anyway, in terms of coming back to potentially Saint-Etienne, how?
Yeah, well, it's a likely possibility at the moment. We understand that Saint-Etienne are happy in principle with the idea of a loan with an option to buy Waris from Porto. But the current snag with the deal is that the Portuguese side are waiting on confirmation that they can get a forward replacement. So until they get that replacement, Waris won't be going to Saint-Etienne at all. But I think that Waris has only made 4 appearances for the Portuguese side. So we're not sure if he'll be a massive miss in Portugal, but he'll certainly be an improved signing for Saint-Etienne and their forward line to get some goals.
And they need goals, certainly they do.
Yeah, they do.
And let's move our focus back to Germany. And you touched upon it earlier a little bit, Axel, really, in that Vidal news. And so I'll start with that one. And that's Anthony Martial, who's reportedly asked to leave Manchester United. Whether that comes to fruition is another matter entirely. But Bayern Munich may be one of the teams in the queue.
Yeah, it seems like it. Jose Mourinho does not seem too keen on selling to a league rival like Chelsea, and Bayern Munich seem to be the front runners abroad as well. So that could be a really good signing for the Niko Kovac side, as they desperately need a new world-class winger. I mean, they have Kingsley Coman and Serge Gnabry, but both are extremely difficult to put somewhere. It's they are very everywhere and nowhere, basically. So it could be they would do well to sign a real world-class winger again, like they had for many years in Ribéry and Robben. It could be a very exciting signing actually for Bayern Munich going into the new season with some doubts regarding the squad and the board as well. So it could be very exciting for them and could be quite realistic as well, especially if the signing of Vidal goes through, or even if the potential signing of Boateng for about 60 million to Manchester United goes through. So it could be a very nice signing on all fronts.
Absolutely. The problem at the moment, I suppose, is Bayern Munich are reportedly wanting Manchester United to stand a little bit further down than their current valuation of the player. Is that maybe holding Bayern back? I know last summer, obviously, the signing of Corentin Tolisso for around 40 million euros was their sort of record signing. Do you think they're not trying to splash the cash maybe on one big player, given that the giants around them, especially in Europe at least, are doing the same, that it's maybe just limiting Bayern's European potential at least?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they do have a good coach now that's kind of an expert at doing wonders with the small funds. Niko Kovac, who won the German Cup, of course, at Eintracht Frankfurt last season with minimal funds. So it could limit them, but it could also. I mean, it's always been their way. It's always been the way of German teams that to spend as little as possible and to try to gain as much as possible from what you do have. And it's been said in Munich that you need to put a much bigger emphasis on youth development and developing what you have already. So I do think that the approach they are having is quite decent. It's very Bayern Munich. It's very German, but I do still think that Martial would be a very good signing, even though 75 million, as it's reported, could be a bit too much for them.
Absolutely, that is. I know they're a little bit frugal there in Bavaria sometimes, but one thing they're not so frugal about, and you mentioned it briefly a moment ago, Axel, is that Boateng potentially heading back to Manchester, but this time on the red side of things, potentially about 60 million euros. That's a steep price for what is usually a great centre-back who didn't have the greatest of tournaments, though. Would he still be a useful signing for the Red Devils?
Useful, yeah. He'll also be a useful departure for Bayern Munich, I think. I mean, he's a very good centre back. He had a difficult season last season as well. Had a few injuries. Was replaced by Schüller at the end of the season, who did extremely well, and his World Cup was, of course, horrid. I must say. But I mean, we've seen in the last 5, maybe even more than that, years that he's a centre back to rely on a very high international level. So I mean, he would definitely improve the defence at Manchester United, or he would probably improve at any club in the world. And I do also think that selling him would allow Niklas Schüller to develop even more, which is probably, I mean, what he was signed to do. So it could be a very good move for both sides, for all sides, if they do get the money for it.
Absolutely, and like I say, it funds other deals then and gives them a little bit more leeway and gets an expensive player off their books and potentially might be a really big impact to a team like Manchester United. We'll finish with, on the Bundesliga at least, with one of the only real deals this week, and I know you're a bit of a fan of this one, Alex and Axel, and that's Freiburg signing Brandon Borriello from Kaiserslautern. What do you think to the move?
It's very, as if you say, Freiburg. It's like they've always been famed for signing like lesser known players for small sums. Very clever transfer policy. Have always had, will probably always have. This is just another one in that line. Brandon Borriello is an Australian 22-year-old right winger who did a fantastic season at Kaiserslautern, who though did a horrible season in the Zweite Bundesliga and got relegated last season, of course. But he was like their only main star, their only shining star, the only shining star in a dying galaxy, basically. So this is a very, very good signing from SC Freiburg, and I'm extremely excited about seeing him in Bundesliga because he basically lit up Zweite Bundesliga last season. He is injured at the moment, though. He suffered anterior cruciate ligament in February, I think it was. So he will be out for the next few months, I think. But when he gets back, he will definitely improve. The Freiburg side is a side that definitely lacks some determination, some technical brilliance, which he definitely will bring.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to try and mould him in midway through the season at least. We're going to finish tonight with something I'm springing on our guests, unfortunately, so be prepared for this at least. We've obviously had a long transfer window so far, having it happened all the way before the start of the World Cup, really, and there's been plenty of big deals, so I wanted to get all your three thoughts of your favourite deals from your respective leagues so far. So I'll give a couple of people a time to think, but I have a guess that Sandro may be able to give us one that's relatively simple at least. What's been the biggest deal or the most important deal for you in Serie A so far this summer?
I mean, biggest deal, obviously, Ronaldo. A part of me is still shocked that that deal came to fruition on so many levels. Truly extraordinary. Fantastic to have a global superstar in the league. It feels like it's been a while. So obviously I'll go with that, and I'll take a couple minutes to think of an under the radar good move.
Okay, I will come back to you then, Sandro. Thank you for that nice little tease, and I'll come to you, Hal. So in Liga, what's your favourite signing so far?
I mean, one that was been confirmed in the last day or so was Johan Gourcuff's move to Dijon from Rennes, which I'm hoping will get him back on the sort of regular playing trail again and get him back to the form that he was in playing for Bordeaux almost 10 years ago now when they won the league. That is one that I would say has gone under the radar a bit. That has been one of my sort of standout ones. In terms of a bigger one, I would probably have to pass and request a couple of minutes to think of my favourite one.
I unfairly sprang this on all of you, to be fair, so I don't blame you at all, really. Just some breaking news, at least, anyway, and I'll stick with you, Hal, because it is involving a French side, and it's facing Stade Rennais, really, and that's Yoris Gnagnon. Supposedly Sevilla are set to sign the defender, according to some reports. We just have it. It was literally breaking, so we don't even have a source or anything yet. So we'll bring that as soon as we get it. But Hal, they've just lost Clement Lenglet, who they obviously bought from France previously, who's headed to Barcelona. But Yoris Gnagnon, a very highly rated defender in Ligue 1 for the last few seasons. I know Rich Allen, who may be listening, might not be enjoying that kind of news, but would be the right kind of signing for Sevilla.
Is this for Clement Lenglet?
No, they're signing possibly signing, at least reportedly, Yoris Gnagnon from Rennes. Oh
yes, yeah, he would be probably a very good signing to come in for Sevilla to replace Lenglet. It's certainly a step up for him to go to a club like Sevilla who are playing European football regularly. So yeah, we'll have to see how he settles in. But he's got big shoes to fill to replace Lenglet. He's obviously gone to Barcelona.
And I know I'm a big fan of Gnagnon. He's maybe a little bit undersized for a centre-back, but it would be interesting to see how he gets on in Spain, as many French centre-backs have done pretty well recently, at least. So I'll move on to you, Axel. Bundesliga's obviously had a few transfers already, but what's been your favourite so far?
Quite difficult, because the transfer that's my favourite, also my absolute, well, the one I liked least. As a Frankfurt fan, I was quite astounded to see Marius Wolf leave Frankfurt for Borussia Dortmund for only 5 million, which is absolutely devastating and horrible. I can't understand it, but it's an extremely good signing for Borussia Dortmund, who get a potential national team player in the future for only 5 million. did a fantastic season last season, and of course won the German Cup. A bigger signing would probably be Damien Delaney. Damien Delaney. That's his first name. From Werder Bremen to Borussia Dortmund as well for 25 million, which is a fantastic midfield signing for them. The perfect player.
And there's I'll tell you my favourite Bundesliga signing at the moment as well, and that's Alessandro Pugliese to Gladbach. I think he might be a really good signing for them.
Good
at
choice.
least. I should know that one, really, shouldn't I? I'll come back to you then, Sandra. We're giving you a little bit of time to pick your more, shall we say, hipster pick at least. Anyway, and we like to be a little bit underground here at Get Football. So, what's your more under the radar pick for your transfer so far?
My pick would be Duvan Zapata joining Atalanta from Sampdoria. The striker has improved each of the last couple seasons, and Atalanta are a team that have done very well the last few seasons and are actually in a Europa League qualifying match on Thursday. I think he'll be able to get a very good goal output there. And for one more to connect to the French side of things, I've heard Alban Lafont, the goalkeeper who Fiorentina signed from Toulouse. I've heard very good things, so I'm excited to watch him play. And it's nice to see that the Viola have finally found a long-term goalkeeper.
You were right to hear the right kind of things, and hopefully you've heard that from our podcast, because we have been raving about Lafont for quite a while, and it's nice to see him finally make a step up, although we would have liked to keep him in France, but we'll enjoy him still staying in purple at least anyway, so that's a nice positive for him. Back to you then. We want a little bit more of an underground signing, shall we say. So what's one of your favourite Ligue 1 transfers that's maybe a little bit under the radar?
I would probably, I've just gone through my list of the summer transfers that have happened so far over the last couple of months. One of the ones that has really caught my eye was the signing that Monaco have made of Willem Goebbels. He's a 16-year-old, very, very promising Dutch winger from Lyon. They signed him for 20 million euros. So he's very highly rated, and of course Monaco are really one of the principal clubs in Europe, you could say, for blooding young talents in Europe. So, I mean, maybe this season it will be too early to see how he settles in. He may even go on loan to another French or European club. But in the long term, I'm very excited to see how he settles in at the Stade Louis II. Well, I would also probably have to put Gigi Buffon in there for just the name and the just the fame of it, really, and just it's welcome to see Gianluigi Buffon in another club. It's even a non-Italian club, really. I expect he'll get consistent first-team football ahead of Alphonse Areola. So let's wait and see if he can finally get that Champions League trophy.
Yes, it'd be funny either way if he can get that Champions League trophy on his own, or if maybe Ronaldo helps Juventus get there without him in the goal. But
maybe in the final, yeah.
There's plenty of underground signings I like in Liga. Sabacho to Rennes, that's a lovely one. Old favourite from Reims, and look at also again Monaco picking up Pierre Gabriel from Saint-Etienne, good player, and Coletta Carr as well, who's come from Salzburg to
Marseille. Yeah, that's a good signing. Yeah.
Scouted him a few times last season in the Europa League, fair few times. They played them 3 times in the end. But yeah, he's an excellent player for them to bring in at least. On to very quickly some breaking news again from French football, and that's the one that's exploding this evening, because Lyon have reportedly made an offer for Porto midfielder Hector Herrera, and that was a position of strength really last season for them, with Tanguy Ndombele and Lucas Toussaint and Hassim Aouar all in that kind of position. Would Hector Herrera add some extra balance to that, with the likes of possibly Ferry going, and obviously no more Sergi Darder to sort of cover around? Maybe the Mexican will add some extra depth to them.
Yeah, I think he would do. Depth for sure. He's a different type of player to Ndombele and Hassim Aouar. He's got a bit more experience to him, and of course they're going to be playing in Europe now again this year, so they'll need an extensive midfield choice. So it'd be a good signing for Lyon. Yeah, so let's wait and see.
Yeah, he's maybe a little bit more rough and tumble than the ones they've got at the moment, but it's always nice to have someone who can mix it up. I'll give you the final word then, Axel, and I'll come back to yourself. I know there's some great deals really in the Bundesliga so far. They always do, and they're always trying to swap each other. What's your more maybe under the radar deal?
Well, I mean, there are quite a lot. Quite a lot of them.
I thought that would be a difficult question to me.
I would have said Dominic Drexler to Cologne, but Cologne aren't in Bundesliga anymore, so that it's of course not countable. Stuttgart have made some amazing signings, I must say. They signed the Croatian left back Bona Sosa from, I think, Zagreb for a very cheap sum, which seems to be a very, very, very good signing. Of course, they signed Pablo Maffio from Manchester City as well. Fantastic signing. Can't imagine how they did that for 10 million, I think it was. So Stuttgart is amazing at the business. But they're signing, what that was confirmed today, Brandon Borello is great from SC Freiburg. Frankfurt have done some good business. They, of course, sadly sold Mascarell to Schalke for only 4 million due to a clause in his contract with Real Madrid. But he signed Lucas Toro from Osasuna instead, which seems to be a very, very good replacement for him. They also signed Evan Ndika from Auxerre for, I think, a club record deal. I think it was 7 million euros. And he seems to be a great talent. So that's also a very good deal, I must say. But I think one of my favorites is also Hertha Berlin's business at right back. They sold Mitchell Weiser to Leverkusen for about 16 million euros, but then went on to sign Lucas Klinter from Cologne, true talent at right back, for only a few million as a replacement. Extremely good business from the capital club, which also is famous for doing very good business. Well, that's basically all German clubs. Leipzig have done some good business in the business. They signed Noé Mukiele from Montpellier. Montpellier? Yeah, I think. Yeah, Montpellier. Yeah. Really good signing. From what I've seen and heard of him, he's a perfect fit for them at right back or centre back. So there are quite a few amazing signings that just will probably prove to be perfect in the future.
Absolutely, and there's maybe one smart man over here that did a piece on Noé Mukiele that everyone should maybe check out. With him obviously joining RB Leipzig, but yeah, Stuttgart's business. You look back at it, Maffeo, Sousa, even Castro and Didavi, some experience in there. Marc-Oliver Kemp from Freiburg, who's been decent as well. Really good signings for them to push on to Europe. Excellent. Thank you for joining me this evening, gentlemen. As you say, that's all we have time for. So my thanks to Alessandro, Axel, and Hal for their company, and the same to all of you at home. Please do join us again tomorrow on our new channel here on YouTube. It's Get Football News. We were supposed to start on there tonight, but unfortunately technical difficulties got in the way. But for more on the crazy world of transfer window, do follow all our Twitter feeds, GFFN, GFN and GIFN, all the acronyms that you can think of potentially. Follow them over there, and do join us again tomorrow evening. Good night.